Hi, my name is Gordy Hogue, and this is Community Connection. Each of us have stories that help us understand each other and help to bring our community closer together. I have been very fortunate to have met many interesting people who've had a positive, profound impact on our community and far beyond. People who've had incredible life experiences and fascinating stories. Community Connections is about these people and about their stories. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting these amazing people as much as I have. Thank you. Please enjoy. It is my pleasure to have Laurae McNally, our long-serving school trustee, on Community Connections today. Welcome, Laurae.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So you have been serving our community for 35 years as a school trustee, and I think you're at least tied for the longest. And I remember reading somewhere that you said that a trustee was really about community service. Can you talk about what you meant by that?
Well, I was brought up in a family that believed you got out of your community what you put into it. And I loved school as a kid. Like, I just loved school. And I've always wanted any child I knew to love school as much as I did. And I never had any aspirations to be an MLA or an MP or king or anything else. I was just interested in education. And so I ran for the school board, and here I am.
And all of these years that I've seen you, seem to be at every single event that occurs, and you've been out visiting the schools much more so than any other trustees. You've really been engaged in and committed to the community. How did you end up? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've always believed that you can't make a difference if you're not in schools and in classrooms.
Yeah, and you certainly lived that. How did you get to this community? Was it Penticton you came from?
I came from from Penticton, and then married a fellow from South Surrey, and moved down here.
So if we talk about Surrey, Surrey is the largest school district in the province by a fair amount now. How many?
By about 16,000.
Wow. Yeah. So how many languages are spoken in Surrey?
In our school district, there's 191 different languages spoken in the homes of our students.
That's got to present a real challenge to the school district and the operation.
Well, you know, I think it's really healthy for our school district because our students grow up knowing a lot about different cultures. Yeah. I think it's a good thing, quite frankly. Right. And if you go in a lot of our high schools, you will see in the atriums and that flags from all these different countries hanging from the ceiling.
That's got to be heartening. Almost like United Nations. I know you did a lot of work with in Surrey with respect to SOGI as well. Can you talk a little bit about that and how important that was to you?
Well, it was very important to me. There was a lot of opposition in the province, a lot of misunderstanding about SOGI, and you just have to sort of talk to people and explain what it's all about, and talk about diversity, and you know, eventually we passed some policies in our district. In fact, many school districts in the province did. And we have a lovely, colorful rainbow crosswalk between the two buildings in our school district offices, which we're very proud of.
Yeah, and SOGI stands for sexual orientation and gender identity. So for those who...
Yeah, and there was so much disinformation about that, Gordy. It was a shame, but those kids deserve to be treated the same as everybody else.
Absolutely, and you were certainly a leader in that in our community and in the school district.
And you would be interested to know that we just had plans for a new school come to the board the other night with gender neutral washrooms.
Oh, nice.
We were all very excited.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. It's been a tough slog, but we're getting there.
And you've had a number of challenges in your 35 years in the school district. Earl Marriott's overcrowding. I remember that going on for some period of time, and the facilities that you had to initiate. And what was your role that you played in that for so many years as we were trying to get that dealt with?
Well, when my kids went to Earl Marriott, it was overcrowded. 40 years later, it's still overcrowded. and when my kids were there, they didn't have PACs in secondary schools. We only had PACs in elementary schools in those days. And because the school was so overcrowded, and because they didn't have a lunchroom, the kids actually ate their lunch sitting on the floor of the hallways. But the principal of the day sent home a newsletter after Christmas one year saying they'd tried as a staff valiantly to get an addition to the school and had gotten nowhere. And were there any parents that were interested in helping them? So 3 of us showed up at the very first meeting. And we had a tour of the school and heard the story. And you know what it's like, and you would understand this, when you have a cause, 3 become 7, become 29, and it took us 2 years and 200 parents, but we finally got an addition to the school and a cafeteria. And that next year, 4 of the trustees on the board decided they would not run in that election. And so people nattered at me to put my name forward, and I did. And that was the start of it all. But we've had several additions at Earl Marriott since then. Everyone has been a bit of a struggle. And you would know that the school is landlocked. You just can't add on to it anymore. And so we desperately needed a new high school in the South. And it's taken us about 8 years. The roof is going on now. And you were very, very helpful in working with your colleagues in the Ministry of Education and helping us push that project along. And we're finally getting there.
You were at a sod turning for that.
I was.
And I got to come there a little bit later as well. It was a great thing to see happen.
Have you been by it lately?
I haven't been by it in the last couple of months, no.
Oh, you must go, because they've got part of the roof on now.
Oh, wonderful.
Entrance is all finished, and yeah.
So you've utilized some interesting political strategies in your time as a trustee. Do you want to talk about working with the Premier Van der Zalm and Ernie Hall and some of the things you did there to affect some of these results, to get some of these things happening for our rapidly growing district?
Well, back when we were trying to get our teaching kitchen at Earl Marriott, we only had 2 MLAs in Surrey. We had Bill Van der Zalm and Ernie Hall, and a group of us as parents would play one against the other. Well, I mean, we had to. Yeah. And we were getting nowhere. And so we went to BC Hydro, we went to BC Tel, we gathered up from them all of their growth numbers for the future. And we were back and forth to Victoria many times. In fact, I still have a copy of the old White Rock Sun newspaper with the headline, stop the merry-go-round, I want to get off. But you know, you do what you have to do. And we tried to be civil to everybody, but in the end, the data clearly showed that this area was going to grow, and the government eventually recognized that.
And you also led an initiative with the Surrey City Council with respect to development and the growth that was happening there. And to talk a little bit about
that. And that was a fairly recent one. Yeah. Because as you know, if you drive around, the growth is just unbelievable. and we were not getting any new schools. We didn't have any new schools for a long time. And I finally said to the board of the day, look, you know, we have to do something here. But slates get involved in politics and that. And so I decided, as an independent, I would move a motion asking for the board to ask Surrey City Council to stop growth in the heavily developing areas like Clayton and South Surrey and Newton. And to my surprise, it passed unanimously. There were people not happy about it, but I got tons of emails. In fact, I had over 1,800 emails from citizens in Surrey saying, good on you. I had an elderly lady from Cloverdale arrive at my door one day with 2 banana loaves, saying, oh dear, you must be so busy and you don't have time to bake, and I wanted to thank you for what you did. I had several bouquets of flowers, but it had to be done. And eventually we kind of broke the logjam.
Yeah, no, with the COVID-19 going on now, you've told me a few stories about a couple of young boys, 5 and 6 year olds that were really pretty creative. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
well, they they built a little grocery store, and
this is in a classroom they've done this, isn't it?
In the classroom, yeah, and they made, everything was made out of cardboard and pipe cleaners and construction paper and that, but they had great imaginations. And you could go, the staff that was there could go and ask to buy certain groceries. And then they started a bank, and they would hand out credit cards to the staff. Some got premium credit cards. Some staff didn't, to their dismay. And when the ones that wanted the premium credit cards asked, the little 5-year-old would say, well, you have to develop a credit rating. They must hear this discussion at the supper table. And last week, or the week before, one of them developed a doctor's office. And he would look in your ears to see if there was wax, and he made a high blood pressure cuff for his, for your arm. Like, they have great imaginations. It's been really fun listening to the stories that have come out of this classroom.
Yeah, didn't they, with one of the assistant superintendents, give them a low credit rating? They couldn't get a credit card that was enough to buy anything with?
Yeah, one of our assistant superintendents. But I would love to be a mouse in the wall at the dinner table discussions in that house.
Sound like brilliant young children. Brilliant in many ways.
Well, and you could tell that they were children that don't spend all day in front of a computer or a television screen. Yeah. They really use their imagination.
So another thing that you're known for is your love to travel. So can you talk a little bit about some of your trips where you've to Israel and Jordan and refugee camps and Zatari?
Well, yeah, when I was small, like grade 1-ish, we didn't have a television. And one of my aunts got me started collecting postage stamps, which I still do to this day. And I got really interested in all these countries in the world. And I'm a visual learner. Like, I need to see things. I can read travel books and that, but it's not the same as being on the ground, experiencing the culture and talking to the people there. So I began traveling, and I would, every year I would do one of my own bucket list trips, but I also took opportunities to take students if I could. I went to, I've chaperoned high school kids everywhere. China several times, Ireland, Cuba, Disneyland, all over. But, and I've taken students to Ecuador 3 times to work in an orphanage, because those are the kinds of trips that really change kids' lives. And I feel really strongly about that. But when I'm on one of my own bucket list trips, I'm not one that just gets off and wanders around with a guide. Like, I like to meet the people that actually live in, in the country, talk to them. So when I went to Bosnia and Croatia, I went out for dinner one night with a family that had been through the war, a Muslim family. And then the next night I went out with another family, because I was trying to figure out that conflict. And I never did figure it out, but I tried. And I went to Israel and Palestine and Jordan. And when we were at the Dead Sea for a couple of days, you can only float around in the Dead Sea for so long. So our guide asked if any of us were interested in going to see a refugee camp. And so 4 of us went, and it was a large camp. And I was walking down this little laneway, and, the sand is white and the tents are white. And this one tent had 4 or 5 really straggly sunflowers growing out front. And there's no water in the camp. They truck water in every day around dinner time. And I said to the fellow there, "How do you keep these things alive?" And he said, oh, we use our gray water. And I said, "Why do you bother?" And he said, "Well, ma'am, I have 4 children, and I don't want them growing up thinking the only color in the world is white." And I cried myself to sleep every night for the rest of the tour. And I thought, I just have to go back there. And I'm able to travel. I don't have young children at home or anything. And I try and help in places like that. Like, I've been to the Philippines distributing used eyeglasses, and Peru. They're things that are important to me. There are a lot of people that can help close to home here, but not everybody can go overseas. And so as long as my health holds out, I'm gone. I'm devastated with the virus we're in now, and that there's no travel. Like, I haven't been any further than Cloverdale. And I'm desperate to travel, but it'll come back.
So go ahead, sorry.
I think it's really important for people to travel and see these other countries, and especially important for our young people.
And that camp that you were in, there were like, was 125,000 people or something?
There were 126,000 at the start. Some of them have been fortunate enough to have been accepted by other countries. But it was so big that they started a second camp very close by. So I think they're down to about 86,000 now, and some 32,000 in the second camp. But Jordan has had to close its borders. They're not a large country. They have bent over backwards trying to help the Syrian refugees, but they just can't accept anymore. They just simply can't. So they have had to, as they say, close the borders. And I watch the news, and I just cry inside watching what's happened to Syria. And the Syrian people they're very hard-working people. They truly value education. And I think one of the biggest thrills I had the last 6 months was, as you know, we have a welcome center in our school district where we accept a lot of the refugee families, and we get them settled, and we determine where the kiddies need to be as far as placements and schools, etc., and help them with their English. And we took some of our MPs on a tour there a few months ago, and I went along, and I met a girl and her 2 brothers that came out of the camp that I was in. Now, I would never have run into them, and they would never have run into me. But I cried all the way home. I thought, it's just, it's really heartwarming to do that kind of thing.
And in those camps, you taught school and you inoculated children.
Oh yeah, yeah, you do. You do what you have to do. And I can help students with everything except algebra. Gordy, I still suck at secondary algebra.
Well, how much time would you spend when you went to one of those camps? And
Oh, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got didn't you get shrapnel in your foot at one point? And
Yeah, my leg. Yeah, yeah. I got wounded, but it healed. I wouldn't win a beauty contest with my leg anymore, but I'm not going in a beauty contest anyway.
And where was it? Was it a camel or something that bit you once too?
A llama.
A llama, that's right. The llama story. Tell us the llama story.
That was the llama story. Well, I went and helped in the fire relief in the Okanagan a decade or so ago, and and I was there were a lot of people that went to Kelowna, and I ended up in Okanagan Falls because there were fires at both ends of the valley. And my job, besides making hundreds of sandwiches, was I would go up the mountain and walk the llamas down, and all of the animals were tied up outside the fire hall. And it didn't matter what you did with these llamas, they would hiss at you and spit at you. And I offered one a peach, and he bit me.
Didn't accept your gift.
Llamas. I still like llamas.
So in this wonderful career of giving that you've lived for so many years, what the things were you most touched by and most proud of in that period of time?
Oh, Gordy, there's so many. You know, my mom used to say, your life is a book, and it's up to you how many pages you write in it. And so if I see an opportunity that that's, as I say, that I can get to, that I know other people maybe can't, I grab it. Like, my doctor wouldn't want to hear this, but if there was a forest fire again in the Okanagan, even though I suffered terribly from too much smoke in my lungs, I'd be gone. It is just find it very rewarding.
Yeah. If you had the chance to change something in our world or in our community, and what were the things that you could wave your wand and be the most important things that would look at and improve the caring and commitment we have in our community, in our country, and more broadly in our world?
Well, one of the things I've always wished would happen is that every secondary school student in Canada would get the opportunity to go to Normandy. I feel very, very strongly about that. And I have taken students overseas to Normandy, and it really is a life-changing experience. And I often think if those students got to talk to the veterans over there and got to talk to more of our veterans here, it would really mean something, because we're losing so many of our older veterans. We're going to lose all their stories. But I also think they learn, it sort of whets their appetite to learn about other countries. And I think that's how we defeat racism, quite frankly. So if I had a magic wand, or if I was prime minister, I would decree that every secondary student in Canada had to go to Normandy.
And I know in Surrey, you're looking more and more at experiential learning as well as just the classroom learning. And certainly that would be the ultimate of experiential learning, wouldn't it?
It is. It's and when you look at the millions that get spent on other things, I think the reward of doing that would just benefit everybody. It really would. And it breaks my heart when I watch the news right now with all the racism attacks on people. And I think, oh, what a shame, what a waste. And I know the kids that I've taken to Ecuador and overseas, they come back, they're changed. They really are changed kids. And I think if there were more of them in our world, we'd be a lot better off.
Yeah. Well, you started by mentioning that that your mother said that what you put into the community is in fact what you get out of it. And certainly we've been blessed to have an enormous amount that you've given to our community. And by the way you're describing it, clearly you've learned a great deal from that and lived out your mother's comments with respect to that.
Well, I've tried. I've tried, but I'm not done yet.
No, you're certainly not. You're certainly not.
And we just need to be able to travel again.
Travel, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for spending this time with us. It's been most intriguing and interesting, and you're certainly someone who inspires all of us with your continued contributions to not just this community, but to the world and the things that are happening. So,
well, you know, it's Mom always said, you know how your parents kept saying these things over and over, you know, don't leave any food on your plate. There's hungry children, you know, and you remember those things all the time. And she used to say, don't fret about the thousands in the world you can't help. Just feel good about the ones that you have helped.
So you've got lots to feel good about.
I do.
Thank you for joining us today on Community Connections. Please tune in to our next show as more amazing people share their wonderful stories. If you haven't already, please click on the red subscribe button below, right down there, and view our updates. Feel free to leave any thoughts or comments that you may have. We're always trying to do a better job of connecting this wonderful community. Thanks again for joining, and until next time, keep connecting. Thank you.